In the heart of a small American town, Miss Clara Thompson, a beloved high school teacher, faced the ultimate humiliation when a gang of ruthless bullies forced her to kneel in front of a jeering crowd. But what happened next will leave you speechless. A single moment of courage that turned the tables and sparked a revolution. If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button and show some love to Ms. Clara's incredible story. Clara Thompson stood at the front of her classroom, her hand steady on the chalkboard as she scribbled the final notes for her 9th grade English class. The room buzzed with the usual hum of teenage energy, pencil-stepping whispers darting between desks and the occasional stifled laugh. Clara, a woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, had spent 20 years teaching at Willow Creek High School in the small town of Maplewood, Indiana. She was the kind of teacher who remembered every student's name, who stayed late to help with essays, who brought homemade cookies on exam days to her students. She was more than a teacher. She was a mentor, a confidant, a beacon of stability in a world that often felt chaotic. But today, as the final bell rang and the students filed out, Clara felt a strange unease settle in. Her chest shackled and pinpoint. Why, maybe it was the way a group of boys in the back had been whispering, their eyes glinting with something sharper than mischief, shaking it off. She gathered her papers and headed toward the faculty lounge, unaware that her life was about to change forever. Maplewood was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else's business. With a population barely scraping 10,000, it was a place where Friday night football games drew bigger crowds than church services, and Fellicle Diner was the unofficial town hall. Clara had grown up here, attended Willow Creek Hires and returned after collegiate. Give back to the community that shaped her. She loved her job, loved her students, even the challenging ones, but lately a shadow had crept over the school. A group of seniors led by a charismatic but cruel boy named Derek Vance had been pushing boundaries. It started small snide comments in class-to-face lockers, whispered threats in the halls, but over the past few months their behavior had escalated. Derek, with his sharp jawline and sharper tongue, had a knack for rallying others. His crew, Tommy, Nate, and a quiet kid named Ethan, who seemed to follow out of fear rather than loyalty, had become a force of chaos. They targeted anyone who crossed their path: younger students, substitute diakers, even custodians. Clara had noticed the fear in her students' eyes, the way they avoided certain hallways, the way the school spirit seemed to dim. She'd reported incidents to Principal Hargrove, but his response was always the same: kids will be kids, handlight. Yet nothing changed that afternoon. As Clara walked through the school parking lot, she spotted Derek and his crew leaning against her car. Her heart sank. She had run-ins with Derek before. He'd mocked her lessons, disrupted her class, even spread rumors about her being too soft to handle real discipline. But this felt different. The air crackled with tension as she approached her, keys jingling in her hand. Derek smirked, tossing a cigarette butt onto the pavement. "Hey, Miss Thompson," he drawled, his voice dripping with mockery. "Got it, minute?" Clara straightened, Herdeker's instinct kicking in. "Derek, Yauk, no, you shouldn't be smoking on school property. Move away from my car, please." The other boy snickered, but Derek's eyes narrowed. "You think you're in charge here?" he said, stepping closer. "This town, this school, it's our say, or just a nobody who thinks she's somebody." Clara held his gaze, refusing to back down. "Go home, Derek. This isn't worth it." But as she turned to unlock her car, Tommy grabbed her arm, spinning her around before she could react. Nate shoved her forward, and Derek, "Park it on your knees, teacher. Let's see how you are now." The parking lot wasn't empty. Crowd of students had gathered, phones out, recording the scene. Clara's heart pounded as she stumbled, her knees hitting the gravel. The humiliation bird, but she refused to cry. She looked up at Derek, his face twisted with triumph, and saw the crowd growing. Students, some she'd taught, others shouldn't know, all watching, some laughing, some silent. "Beg," Derek said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Beg used to let you go." Clara's mind raced. She thought of her years at Willow Creek, the students she'd helped, the lessons she'd poured her heart into. She thought of her late husband, Tom, who'd always told her to stand tall no matter what, and she thought of her daughter, Lily, a freshman at the same school who might be watching this right now, Clara's voice was steady when she spoke. "I don't beg," she said, "not to you, not to anyone." The crowd murmured and Derek's smirk faltered for a split second, then he laughed. A cruel, hollow sound and kicked dirt toward her face. "You'll regret that." Hesed Clara didn't know it yet, but Thisma meant her kneeling in the parking lot surrounded by a jeering crowd was Thess Park that would ignite a firestorm. Word of the incident spread like wildfire by evening. The video was all over social media, shared across Maplewood and Bayonne. Parents were outraged, students were divided, and the local news picked up festery. Clara, shaken but resolute, drove home to her small house on Elm Street where Lily was waiting. Her daughter, a quiet girl with her mother's eyes, ran toward tears streaming. "Mom, I saw the video. We didn't you fight back?" Clara hugged her tightly, her own emotions a tangled mess sometimes. Lily, fighting back doesn't mean throwing punches, means standing up when everyone expects you to. Stay down that night. Clara didn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table replaying the moment, wondering what she could have done differently, but something inside her shifted, a quiet resolve, a determination to take back her dignity and protect her students from the poison spreading through Willow Creek High. The next morning, Lara arrived at school to a media frenzy. News vans lined the street, reporters shouting questions as she walked past. Principal Hargrove called an emergency faculty meeting, his face pale as he addressed the staff. "This is a nightmare," he said, pacing. "We need to contain this, Clara. I'm sorry, but maybe you should take a leave until this blows over." Clara's jaw tightened. She'd expected support, not blame. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "Those boys need to face consequences, and I'm not letting school pretend it didn't happen." The other teachers exchanged glances, some nodding, others looking away. Clara knew she was risking her job, but she couldn't stay silent. She'd spent too long believing the system would fix itself. It was time to act. Clara's first move was to gather evidence. She reached out to students who had witnessed the incident, asking for their accounts. Most were too scared to speak, but a few, including a shy junior named Mia, came forward. Mia had recorded a second video, one the bullies had noticed, showing Derek planning the attack. In the moments before Clara approached her car, the video was damning proof of premeditation, of malice. Clara took it to the school board, demanding action, but the board, led by a wealthy businessman named Richard Vance, Dirk's father, was hesitant. Richard was a powerful figure in Maplewood. His construction company, employing half the town he bestowed to downplay the incident, arguing it would harm the school's reputation. Clara felt a surge of anger. They were protecting Derek because of his father's influence. She left the meeting vowing to fight harder. Asterisk. That's when the first twist came. Clara received an anonymous email with a link to a private online forum where Derek and his crew bragged about their prank on Miss Thompson. The posts were vile, filled with threats to teach her a lesson again. Clara printed the screenshots and took them to the police, who opened an investigation, but the real shock came when she discovered the identity of the anonymous sender, Ethan, the quiet member of Derek's crew. He met her in secret at a coffee shop, his hands trembling as he confessed, "I didn't want to do it. Hesed, Derek made me. He's got something in me, something bad." Ethan revealed that Derek had coerced him into joining the group by threatening to expose a secret from his past, a shoplifting incident that could ruin his college prospects. Clara saw a glimmer of hope. Ethan wasn't a lost because he was a kid caught in a bad situation. She promised to protect him if he testified against Derek. With Ethan's help, Clara built a case. She worked late nights combing through school records, gathering statements from other victims of Derek's bullying. She discovered a pattern. Derek's crew had been targeting vulnerable students for years, but their actions were always swept under the rug. Clara's determination grew, but so did the backlash. Derek's father, Richard, launched a smear campaign spreading rumors that Clara had provoked the incident. Some parents believed him, and Clara received hate mail accusing her of being a troublemaker. Even Lily faced harassment at school, with students whispering snitch as she passed. Clara sharp broke for her daughter, but Lily stood strong, saying, "I'm proud of you, Mom. Keep fighting." The turning point came during a town hall meeting. The gymnasium was packed with parent students, and reporters. Laura stood at the podium, her voice steady as she recounted incident, shared the evidence, and called for justice. The crowd was divided. Some cheered, others booed. Then Ethan stood up, his voice shaking but clear. Miss Thompson's telling the truth. I was there. I helped them because I was scared, but I'm done being scared. The room fell silent. Then Mia stood, followed by another student, then another, each sharing their own stories of being bullied by Derek's crew. The tide turned. Parents demanded accountability. The school board, cornered by public pressure, suspended Derek, Tommy, and Nate pending police investigation. But story didn't end there. Derek, furious at being exposed, confronted Clara outside her home. Late one night, he was alone, his bravado crumbling as he tried to intimidate her. You think you've won? He sneered. My dad owns this town. Clara stood her ground, her voice calm but firm. Your dad doesn't own me. Unbeknownst to Derek, Lily was recording from the window. The video of Derek's threats went viral, and Richard's influence began to waver. Police arrested Derek for harassment, and the other boys turned on him, cutting deals to avoid harsher charges. Ethan, with Clara's support, came clean about his past and was given community service instead of jail time. Clara's victory wasn't just legal, it was personal. She returned to her classroom, greeted by a standing ovation from her students. She implemented an anti-bullying program, training teachers and students to recognize and stop harassment. Maplewood began to heal, and Clara became a local hero at a school assembly. She shared her story, ending with a message: courage isn't about buying far less, it's about standing up when you're afraid. The crowd erupted in applause, and Lily ran to hug her, tears in their eyes. Clara's life wasn't perfect. After that, she still faced whispers from Thassa Loyal to Richard Vance, and the legal battles dragged on, but she'd reclaimed her dignity and inspired a community to change. As she stood in her classroom watching her students write essays on resilience, she knew she'd done more than rise up. She'd shown them how to do it. Hey viewers, we want to hear from you. Which part of the country are you watching this incredible story from? Drop it in the comments below.